My name is Betty Collier and I'm a qualified art teacher, having taught at tertiary level for nearly 30 years. Since retirement in 2005, I've concentrated more on sculpture and drawing and doing what I want to do. So most of my images are related to nature and the human form. I particularly like all aspects of nature and have been inspired by travels overseas, as well as the pieces of wood, especially hewn pine and stone, that I've found or purchased. Now, I've got several pieces here that I can perhaps talk a little bit about and what I've aimed to do. I have a piece of hewn pine here, and I've called that the Phoenix. I've tried to follow the curve of the flow of the wood itself and leave some of the undercut bits to suggest the wings or plumage of the phoenix as it's rising. I've left or tried to leave the wood as natural as I can, because the hewn pine is a very special wood from Tasmania in Australia, and we're told that you can't find it anywhere else in the world. So I've accentuated the grain. It takes over 100 years for one trunk or the tree to actually grow, and you have to have a license to even take it out of Tasmania, and you can't chop a tree down. You've got to pick up pieces of wood that are in the river itself, and they don't disintegrate in the river. The next one I've got here is cluster formations number 3. I was inspired originally by drawing mushrooms, and this is made out of alabaster, and I've carved the base itself so that it accentuates the cliff formations at the side of the mushroom forms. I've deliberately tried to get undercutting so that it gives that feel of upward thrust of the mushrooms as they grow. I've tried to overlap them, as you find sometimes in the clusters of the mushrooms. The other thing is that's important, I want it smooth and tactile so that you can actually touch it, and it has a harmonious flowing feel about it. The piece that I've got here is another special stone from Australia. It's called zebra stone, and that comes from a place called Kununurra up in Western Australia, and that apparently is the only place in the world that can be found. It's a stone, if you look at the parts where you've got the brown, the dark brown and the light almost fawnish colour, it's a hard, soft rock. It's a dirty rock to carve, but it's got enough hardness in it that you can actually polish it. You can actually carve it by hand. You don't need any electric tools to do it, but it's a brittle stone, so you've also got to be careful with that. This one I've called Desert Nymph, because I felt that it came from the desert. It's got the colours of the desert, and I could see a spirit of a female form in it. Probably a little bit more on the buttock side, on the other side, than on the front side, but it's still that image, or the mirage, if you like, of a female figure floating across the desert, and that was the aim of what I was trying to do. I've lifted that up too, because I've tried to make it, it does touch the base, but still narrower here, and it has more form at the side, so that it doesn't sort of seem bogged down with the weight of the stone. And in each case, both the alabaster and the zebra stone are quite heavy to lift up, The piece I've got down here in the foreground is overlapping pieces of foliage where you've got leaves overlapping, and that's made out of Pilbara jade. Once again, I've tried to lift that off the base so that it doesn't look as if it's too heavy and grounded, and give the illusion that it's actually lighter than what it is. This stone isn't pure Pilbara jade. You'll notice it's got almost the autumny tones and a little bit of iron ore, and that's made it even harder and more difficult to carve because I've had to invest in diamond edged mini saws to go in the angle grinder, and also into the little grinding pieces, and they've had to come out from Germany because they've all been dusted with diamond coating to actually be able to cut into the stone. Once again, you've got the leaf formations flowing down and undercutting to give that feeling of light and dark and variation. It did have a slight mark there in the stone itself, and the zebra stone, the Pilbara jade, actually has a few fault lines in it. But I've still tried to get that feeling, or the angled feeling, of flowing and movement. And the granite base gives it a feeling of stability. I've done a small figure, and this is called Zunita, and she's made out of bronze, but she started off as a wax model, which was then taken to the foundry and made into bronze. I've cut the arms off because I was more interested in the torso itself, so I found the arms would have not accentuated the breast, the hips and the buttocks. I've tried to do that S line that goes right back to classical times to give it a bit of a sway, a bit of movement, and a little bit of elegance. And the head itself, I've tried to get a little bit of an Asian look, and that's the reason why the name has been Zunita. I've just used the classical patina on the bronze with a few little highlights so that it sticks with the classical tradition. This one here is called Expanding Energy. Now, it's a different type of material that I've used. It's used like a special clay that can be baked in an ordinary oven, and it can be sanded, it can be drilled, and it allows you to put paint and gloss on it at the finished product. So I've conceived this as a little area of energy coming through the copper wires and entangling with the actual cylinder shapes there, to have energy in one area then branching out and becoming less energized, if you like, so that you have one major section there and a smaller section coming at the end. I've used the granite base because I think it gives a more professional feel to it than just a bit of wood or something like that, because it could be more monumental. It could go up to a larger scale if anyone wanted to or think they could do it. So that's the idea of that one.